So just to kick us off, as I read through this book, a poem struck me, which I think I'd like to read to you now and ask Elizabeth to give us some background to this poem and how it resonates with you. So just bear with me. It's called Cross by Langston Hughes. I don't know if anyone's here, but Cross is what it's called. My old man's a white old man. Is it? Yeah. Maybe I'll try to do that. Okay, is that better? Oh, brilliant. Okay, so let me try this one. Okay, so this poem is called Cross by Langston Hughes. My old man's a white old man, my old mother's black. If ever I cursed a white old man, I'll take my curses back. If ever I cursed my black old mother and wish she were in hell, I'm sorry for that evil wish, and now I wish her well. My old man died in a fine big house. My ma died in a shack. I wonder where I'm going to die, being neither white nor black. That's a short poem, but it's a beautiful poem and it means a lot. So, do you want to maybe walk us through that, Elizabeth, and tell us why this resonates and what part it plays in your book, and then you can take off from there.
Thank you very much, Conrad. Yes, I do mention this poem in my book, and when I came across it, I mean, I love Langston Hughes and I love his poetry, and I don't think I have to explain the poem, do I? I think it just resonates our experiences and the sort of dissonance, cognitive dissonance sometimes we have in terms of our identities, and the mixture of emotions that we may have depending on our experience in respect to excuse me, our heritage, and it can range from anger, confusion, guilt, and acceptance, and we may have one or more or all of those emotions depending on our own circumstances. So first of all, I have to apologise if I'm a bit so I'm just recovering from a virus, so apologies. So yes, that poem means a lot to me, and I also remember when my daughter came across it, because I actually had it pinned above my desk or something, you know, where my computer is, and one day she came across it and she was as struck by the lyrics as I was. So I don't think I really have to explain it. One little thing though, I'd hoped to use a verse of that in the book until I came across copyright issues and how much I would have to pay. So sorry, I would have loved to, but anyway. I do mention the title. Thanks.
Great. I must say, I really like that. It's very simple. This is really not working, this one, is it? It's quite a simple poem. So let's start by looking at your Irish side, and because your life is broken into two parts in the sense that you've got your African side and your Irish side. So if you want to sort of give us some light into your Irish heritage.
Actually, what I'd like to do, because for those of you that actually haven't read the book, I'd like to read the prologue first. It's just 2 pages, and it explains the title of the book, you know, Mixed Blessings from a Cambridge Reading, so you bear with me. This is actually from a letter from my mother dated 18th of April 1994. I had written to her asking her to tell me a bit more about her life, because I didn't live with her very much and I was very curious to know more about it. So this is part of what she wrote. My parents' reaction to the news of my pregnancy was sheer horror. They insisted that it must be kept secret, and I was virtually a prisoner in the house until I could be sent to a home for unmarried mothers run by nuns in Birmingham. This also explains, she'd studied classics at Cambridge University, and this actually explains why she wanted to call me Artemis, because she felt imprisoned during her pregnancy, and she felt that giving me that name would send us a message of freedom for me. But my grandmother said, "Over my dead body, haven't you caused enough problems as it is?" Anyway, so the official story was that I had had a nervous breakdown and gone to stay with relatives in Ireland to recuperate. So this is now me writing. In the spring of 1947, my mother, Mary Furlong, was 20, single, and a student in her second year at Cambridge University. Her devout Catholic family lived in Stafford, where she had attended local convent schools before winning a scholarship to study classics at Newnham College. It was on a visit home in the Lent term that my grandmother discovered her brilliant daughter was pregnant. My Aunt Pat describes how it happened. Mum was making Mary a summer skirt, and when she went to try it on her, it didn't fit around the waist. So Mum asked her, was she pregnant? She said yes, she was. Mum said, when were you going to tell me about it? And she said that she wasn't. She was going to go and jump off a bridge. So I think that sums up the shock, desolation, depression my mother felt, knowing the impact that this news would have on her family. So this heart-rending account, which I just said, sums up the desperation and shame that my mother must have felt. Everything had been going so incredibly well for her up to now. She was the first in her family to go to university. While at Cambridge, she won the Goodhart Memorial Prize for Classics in 1945 and the Eleanor Purdy Prize for Greek in 1946, and she'd gained a first in her classics prelim exams. The Newnham College authorities later informed my grandfather that Mary had a very promising career ahead and was expected to obtain a first in her degree. Records I obtained from the college in 2013 noted that she was there for less than 2 academic years and that she left due to illness. But the initial details my mother revealed about my father was simply that he was a fellow student at Cambridge. It was only after my birth that my grandmother saw I was brown-skinned. Their sense of stigma intensified, as did their fears for the future, as they now felt unable to look after me as their own child. I'm convinced that they would be pleasantly surprised at how my life turned out. Aged 24, I found my father and the missing piece of my identity. Over 40 years later and in my retirement, I can reflect on having fulfilled my childhood dreams of becoming a nurse. And it goes on and on and on. We finish, skip a little bit. My grandparents were correct, though, in realising the negative impact that my arrival would have on my mother's future academic plans. On the brighter side, she was dearly loved by all 5 of her children, and she was happy that I came to know and love my father. Mixed blessings indeed. So I hope that explains the title of the book now for those who might have wondered. So, as you requested, Conrad, I'll talk first of all about my Irish family heritage. So these readings are really going to be just focusing on my parents, so that we can look at this Irish-African perspective. So, my mother and her siblings were the second generation to be born in England. Now, I've spoken to somebody earlier, and it depends whether you use the American terminology for generations or the British. I'm using, I think, the American. So, my parents' birthplace, grandparents' birthplace was Liverpool in 1896. My grandfather on the 12th of August and my grandmother on the 15th of December. According to my mother, they both grew up in the Irish Catholic Dockland community, then jokingly referred to as the capital of Ireland. Both sets of her grandparents had emigrated from Ireland to Liverpool in the second half of the 19th century. My great-grandfather, John Furlong, 1854 to 1926, I'm a bit of a nerd for dates, you'll see, came over from Wexford on, I don't have to explain to an audience like this that it's on the southeast coast of Ireland, do I? We can skip that. John's parents were William Furlong and Catherine Corish. And excuse me, I wasn't born in Ireland and I didn't grow up in Ireland, so some of my Irish pronunciations may be not very good. My apologies in advance. They had a total of 8 children born between October 1841 and March 1863, with John being born on the 22nd of June 1854. His father and eldest brother Patrick were to drown in a sudden storm while out fishing in Wexford Harbour. In addition, 2 older brothers and a sister appear to have died in childhood, leaving him with just 3 sisters. As a result, according to Great Aunt Kate, who had written a lovely letter to my cousin setting out some of our Irish heritage, John Furlong was an only boy in a house full of girls. The womenkind would not let John go near the harbour after that, so he used to play truant from school to go to the boats, and eventually in his teens he ran away to sea and made Liverpool his base. We're moving on a little bit. It was in Liverpool that John Furlong would meet his wife Mary Kehoe, 1860 to 1932, and she hailed from Springwood, Wexford County. Her father, Michael Kehoe, was known as a hedge schoolmaster. That is, he gathered rural Catholic children together and taught in out-of-the-way places such as quiet roadsides or rooms in houses. As some of you will know, one of the main characters in Brian Friel's play, Translations, is such a teacher. As this practice was illegal, this is Great Aunt Kate writing this now, there was always someone on the lookout to raise the alarm. According to her, if he had been caught, he could have been imprisoned, executed, or transported. So he hid his teaching books on a shelf up the wide chimney. His Latin primer book had been passed down to her, but, in her words, it was browned and dried up and fell apart. We'll move on to a little bit about my lovely great Aunt Kate, who I had the great opportunity of knowing and staying with her in Liverpool. And just to talk about a little bit about her. Kate became an elementary school teacher, having studied at Liverpool's Notre Dame Training College. In the 1911 census, she is listed as Catherine Furlong, a student aged 21 years, and living at Mount Pleasant, Liverpool. Political activism also ran in her veins, as she was a member of the local... let's see if my pronunciation goes... I've dropped it.
We didn't practice this one, by the way. This is Gaelic. Us Gaelic.
Let's have a go.
Okay, go for it.
Okay. Sorry. Cumann na Bhan.
Yes, come on.
Well done. Speaking an IRA.
Which is, I've got it down as the Irish Women's Council of the... Is that okay?
That's a good translation.
Okay. And going back to Great Aunt Kate, she was once detained under DORA, 1914 Defence of the Realm Act. This was in Liverpool. And according to the story handed down in our family, she had stood on a crate inciting Liverpool dockers not to load arms destined for use in Ireland by the British against Irish nationalists. The teachers' union came to her rescue and charges were dropped. Yeah.
Yes, the teachers' union did that. Yeah.
So, nearing... The orange bits are the Irish heritage and the green bits are the Nigerian heritage. Good bit of colour coding. So, nearly... excuse me. And this section I'd like to read is again going back to my mother's letter to me, where she's talking about my grandfather. And she says that, she describes in the early stage of her parents' marriage, her father, my grandfather, was moved from one temporary post to another. Probably what I should have explained was, after the First World War, he'd served with the Connaught Connaught Rangers, and he had served in Egypt. And when he came back, he took the civil service exams in England, and he became a customs and excise officer. Anyway, she talks about during the early stages of their marriage, her father was moved from one temporary post to another, and he and my mother travelled around the country, staying in boarding houses. I was born during this period. She was born in Liverpool, and travelled about with them. When I was 2, my father was given a permanent post in Stafford, which was then a very sleepy little market town, very English, conservative and Protestant. I don't think he ever felt much at home there. He was a member of the Fabian Society, the avant-garde of socialism in those days, and an ardent Catholic, and still interested in Irish politics, sympathising with the Republican movement. Religion and politics were frequently talked about in our house, and although I didn't understand much of it, I formed a strong impression that my father was a fish out of water among his colleagues and acquaintances. So the final short bit of oral history that again was handed down in our family was, you can imagine the family were incredibly shocked in terms of my mother's pregnancy, and all their hopes and dreams, and her hopes and dreams, seemed to be shattered. And I think my narrative is a bit different, well, it's quite different from the horrific experiences that too many children and adults have experienced in some Catholic homes, as has been alluded to earlier. When I discovered that there was a sort of cache of papers, 57 items of correspondence during my period in care for 9 years, initially in the Father Hudson's homes in Birmingham, until I was 3.5, and then until I was 9 in Nazareth House Convent in Birmingham. The social worker who dealt very sensitively with my issues, my situation, said that she really felt that my mother had been dealt with quite differently from most unmarried mothers during that period, and that there were many Irish unmarried mothers coming over to places like Birmingham, for example, to seek refuge and support, and they didn't get the support and understanding that my mother got. And we both discussed this and felt that it was probably because my grandparents were seen as upstanding, devout, middle-class stalwarts of their local parish, their church, and that the local parish priest really just pulled out all the stops and got support of the more senior echelons of the Catholic clergy, the diocese in the West Midlands, with the main aim of getting my mother back to complete her studies at Cambridge University. And so the plan was that they would organise whatever support they could for my mother during the pregnancy, after my birth, and providing care for me whilst my mother completed her studies. And there was also talk of my grandparents looking after me. And my mother had only told her parents that the father of the baby was a fellow student at Cambridge University. So you have to picture the scene now. This is Birmingham. My mother and I had left the maternity hospital and gone back to the mother and baby home run by the Irish nuns in Birmingham. And my grandparents now had come to visit their daughter and their granddaughter. And it was only as they were walking along the corridor after you'd been born, this is my aunt telling me this, that the Irish nun turned and said to them, "To be a little dark.
Outrageous.
Et voila. So that's the Irish side of the